What happens when an unstoppable force meets an unmovable object? What if the most powerful political machine in the world suddenly finds itself powerless against a quiet, unseen revolution unfolding within its own borders? In a year cloaked in mystery and unexpected change, America is about to witness a spiritual awakening so profound it will redefine its very soul. The year is 2025. For 6 months, America, the land of technological prowess and military might, has been gripped by a series of bizarre and unprecedented events. It started subtly, then escalated into a cascade of natural disasters that defied scientific explanation. In January, a colossal snowstorm slammed into the northern states, paralyzing cities like New York and Chicago for days. Schools shut down, power grids failed, and the economy ground to a halt. What unnerved experts was its sudden, unforecasted arrival. "It's as if this isn't a normal storm," a climate scientist mused on TV. "There's a pattern we don't understand, something unscientific." Before the nation could recover, March brought a devastating flood to Texas and Louisiana. Water levels surged within hours, submerging homes and displacing thousands, yet the sky remained eerily clear, devoid of dark clouds. Weather experts were baffled, offering no rational explanation. Simultaneously, massive wildfires erupted in California and Oregon, but strangely, these fires originated from the ground, not from lightning strikes or above. Locals reported a strong sulfur smell before the flames consumed everything. Some religious groups quickly labeled these events as warnings from God. But the most shocking phenomenon wasn't the disasters themselves, it was the spiritual transformation blossoming amidst the chaos. As the nation grappled with inexplicable calamities, countless Americans began a desperate search for deeper meaning. They asked questions they'd never dared to consider. Why is this happening? Is it coincidence? Is it a sign? In major cities like Los Angeles, Detroit, Houston, and even Washington, D.C., mosques, once quiet, began to overflow with new faces. White Americans, Black, Asian, Latino people from every walk of life, drawn by an invisible current. Videos of people converting to Islam, declaring the Shahadah, the testimony of faith, went viral on TikTok and Instagram. Strangers embraced imams, tears streaming down their faces. "I never thought I'd find peace like this," declared a young woman named Jessica in a video that amassed millions of likes. "After I lost my job and my family was destroyed by drugs, I felt empty. But after I heard the call to prayer and talked to a Muslim in a library, it was like my heart was touched by light." Mainstream media tried to downplay this surge, limiting coverage, but the internet could not be silenced. Online forums buzzed with inspiring stories from new converts, pastors, teachers, students, even retired military members. Organizations like the Muslim Converts Association of America, MCAA, reported a staggering 200% increase in Shahadah requests since the beginning of the year. "This is not a trend," asserted a young imam named Faris. "This is a spiritual awakening." Church pastors, facing a significant decline in their congregations, began to panic. Sermons turned into desperate warnings, labeling Islam a tempting religion and urging Christians not to be swayed. Ironically, these warnings only intensified public curiosity. People started researching on their own, secretly reading Quran translations online, hungry for answers their traditional institutions couldn't provide. In a small town in Texas, within the walls of a church that had stood for 5 decades, lived Pastor Jonathan Miller. At 48, Jonathan was charismatic, deeply devout, and his Sunday services were always packed. He preached with fervor, motivating his flock to obey God and shun sin. Yet beneath his public persona, Jonathan carried a profound emptiness. His beloved wife had succumbed to cancer, casting his world into shadow. His children, once close, now lived far away, rarely reaching out. Even his fellow pastors seemed distant, absorbed in their own lives. Jonathan often found himself alone on the long church pews at night, his prayers feeling increasingly unheard. He grappled with existential questions. Why would God let me feel this lonely? Why is my life so hard when I've served him for decades? One cold afternoon, Jonathan's life began to change. Walking through downtown, he noticed a man in the city park. Dressed in clean, simple clothes, the man was engrossed in a small green book. Jonathan initially intended to pass by, but the man looked up, smiled and said, "Good afternoon, sir. It's a calm day today." The man introduced himself as Ahmad. "You seem deep in thought," Ahmad observed gently. Jonathan, normally reserved, felt an inexplicable pull. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, curiosity overriding caution. Ahmad smiled. No, I moved here a few months ago. I'm a Muslim. The word Muslim instantly triggered Jonathan's ingrained caution. Media narratives often painted a negative picture of Islam, yet Ahmad radiated peace. And the book you're reading? Jonathan gestured. It's the Quran, English translation, Ahmad replied. I'm reading Surah Yusuf, a story about patience and forgiveness. A natural curiosity stirred within Jonathan. Ahmad's presence seemed to soothe his troubled mind. Their brief encounter blossomed into more. Jonathan returned to the park daily, seeking Ahmad. Ahmad never pushed Islam, but instead opened a space for sincere discussion. He posed thought-provoking questions. Is God only for one group of people? Jonathan hesitated. No. Then why do we often believe only our belief is right and others are wrong? That question resonated deeply, awakening doubts Jonathan had long suppressed. Ahmad simply listened, sharing his own struggles as a new Muslim, how he'd been shunned and lost his job, yet found peace because his heart was no longer empty. Jonathan felt a subtle shift within him. He no longer felt utterly alone. One sleepless night, consumed by their conversations, he researched Islam, Prophet Muhammad, and the Quran. The more he read, the more he was moved. He discovered teachings of compassion, forgiveness, and absolute submission to the one God. The next morning he confessed his fear to Ahmad. There's no need to be afraid, Ahmad gently reassured. Truth isn't to be feared, it's to be discovered. Days turned into weeks. Jonathan read the Quran's translation, engaged in discussions, asked questions, even learned ablution and tried praying. The doubts that had plagued him dissipated. Life's burdens, once crushing, now felt manageable. Even his relationship with his children began to improve as he became more patient and open. One night, after hours of reflection and prayer, Jonathan made the biggest decision of his life. With tears streaming down his face, he recited the Shahadah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasulullah. Ahmad embraced him tightly. There was no grand celebration, just a silent, heartfelt embrace under the night sky, bearing witness to a lonely pastor finding light. Spring winds gently swept through Arlington City Park. Jonathan, now secretly Muslim, sat on a bench reading his translated Quran. He was still wrestling with how to share his decision with his congregation. Then footsteps approached. Pastor Jonathan? A young, blonde woman stood before him. Emily Sanchez, a former active church member who had vanished months ago. "How are you, Emily? Where have you been?" he asked. She sat beside him, radiating a new brightness. "I came to this park today because I felt pulled by something I can't explain." From her bag she pulled out a small green book. "It's the Quran." Jonathan was stunned. "You too?" Emily nodded gently. "I embraced Islam 2 months ago, and my life has completely changed." Tears of joy welled in their eyes. This was no coincidence. It was a spiritual encounter uniting two souls. Emily shared her story, the deep depression after her mother's passing, how her old faith no longer offered peace. Then a copy of the Quran in a public library and the unexpected peace she found in its verses, especially Surah Maryam. Jonathan listened as if hearing his own story echoed. Emily then invited him to an Islamic study circle. "I'll come," Jonathan said without hesitation. "I've already embraced Islam." Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "Seriously? Oh my God, that's amazing!" They laughed through tears. Two former followers of their previous faiths now united. Unbeknownst to them, an old man in a cowboy hat, Ronald Baker, a former soldier and staunch Trump supporter, had been watching them from a nearby bench, pretending to read a newspaper. Something in their peaceful conversation piqued his curiosity. He slowly approached. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear. Did you mention Islam?" Jonathan calmly confirmed. "Yes, sir. We both recently became Muslims." Ronald squinted. "You're a pastor, right? I remember you leading prayers for veterans, and now you're a Muslim?" Jonathan nodded. "Yes, but I found peace in Islam. This isn't about politics or fanaticism. It's about seeking the truth." Ronald chuckled, not mockingly, but in disbelief. "You know, I was in Iraq. I thought all Muslims were radicals, but honestly they helped me more than some of my fellow soldiers." Emily smiled. "Maybe God is showing you something, sir." Ronald fell silent, a new thought stirring within him. He had never considered Islam, but these three strangers spoke of it so peacefully, so genuinely. "Can I come to that gathering with you?" he asked. Jonathan smiled warmly. "Of course, God willing." As the sun set, these three once strangers, Jonathan, Emily, and Ronald, stood united by a new faith, gazing at the calm lake. They had no idea this meeting would spark a greater wave, becoming pioneers of a new American Muslim community. The next morning, Jonathan returned to his old church. In his hand a letter, a sincere testimony of his journey to Islam. He knew most would react with anger, but he also knew that if even one heart was touched, it wouldn't be in vain. As he entered the main hall, some familiar faces turned, some with affection, others with suspicion. "Pastor," an elderly woman whispered, "we thought you'd never return." Jonathan smiled. "Today I returned not to lead a service, but just to share something, if you're willing to listen." At the pulpit, Jonathan spoke, his voice trembling at first, then growing firm. "I know many of you may be upset or disappointed by my decision, but please allow me to speak, not as your former pastor, but as a fellow human being searching for life's answers." He read from his letter. "For years I led prayers, read the Bible, and taught you to believe in God's love, but deep down I had doubts. I kept asking, why do I still feel empty? Why don't I feel heard when I pray?" He spoke of his losses, his loneliness, and then meeting Ahmad. He didn't preach or pressure me, he just asked a simple question. "Are you sure you truly know your God?" That question led me on a journey, and that journey led me to the Quran. Today I am a Muslim. I believe in one God, Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, but I still respect my past because it taught me to search for truth. Silence filled the room. A young man, Peter, stood up. "Pastor Jonathan," he asked quietly, "do you no longer believe in Jesus?" Jonathan replied gently, "I still believe Jesus was a great person, but now I believe he was a prophet, not God, a holy man sent by Allah, just like Moses, Abraham, and Muhammad." Peter looked down, visibly conflicted. "I don't know what to say, but I can't hate you, sir. Thank you for being honest." Then a loud voice from the side. George, a middle-aged man with a hard stare. "So you came here just to spread another religion? This is our God's house, Jonathan. You think you can poison us with your new beliefs?" Tension soared. But before Jonathan could respond, Emily stood up. "I'm a Muslim too now," she announced, "and I'm not here to poison anyone. I'm just someone who finally found peace." George stared in disbelief. "You too?" Emily nodded firmly. "How many of us have sat here for years without truly feeling peace?" Murmurs rippled through the congregation. From the back, an old man with a cane slowly stepped forward. "My name is Ronald Baker," he declared. "I'm a war veteran. I never believed in anything but bullets and guns, but today I want to say the Shahadah." Silence. Even Jonathan was stunned. "I saw something in their faces. Sincerity, peace, and I envied it. I want to feel that too." Jonathan helped Ronald to the front, and with a soft, firm voice, Ronald recited the Shahadah. Tears flowed, not from anger but from raw emotion. The church, for a moment, transformed, no longer bound by dogma, but a space of seeking and awakening. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump, observing the Islamic revival from his opulent Mar-a-Lago estate, grew increasingly agitated. His face was pale, his eyes red from sleepless nights, plagued by nightmares of grand mosques before the White House and the Adhan echoing across America. He dismissed them as delusions, yet the anxiety persisted. Each morning, he opened Truth Social to find "America Embraces Islam" trending, Shahadah videos popping up hourly. Even a top celebrity, once a loyal supporter, went viral for embracing Islam and wearing the hijab. "This is insane. It's all insane," Trump screamed, throwing his phone. To him, this wasn't a social shift. It was a direct threat to his vision of America. He summoned his inner circle to a secret meeting. "I've been silent too long," he fumed. "They call us paranoid, but look, mosques everywhere, young people speaking in foreign tongues. This isn't religion, this is cultural invasion." Jared Kushner attempted to calm him, suggesting they shape public opinion through right-wing media, but Trump snapped, "Not enough. We need real action. We must break public trust in Islam, make them afraid." Suggestions flew, a fake documentary portraying Islam as violent, an intelligence operation to infiltrate Muslim communities. "Make a list of Islamic organizations to monitor," Trump ordered, and Jonathan Miller. "That traitor, we must destroy his reputation." False stories accusing Miller of being a foreign agent flooded certain TV networks, but the accusations swiftly collapsed as his former congregants defended him. The Muslim community, realizing they were targeted, responded not with fear but with peaceful outreach. The Islam for Peace movement went viral, showcasing Islam's compassion. Non-Muslims flocked to mosques for open Mosque Day events, drawing thousands. Trump grew more agitated. He lobbied Congress members to ban Islamic preaching, but the bill was rejected for violating the First Amendment. Frustrated, he exploded on social media. "The crazies are destroying America. We must act, or this nation will be Islamic in 5 years." While some supported his hate, many mocked him. Muslim leaders, however, remained calm, focusing on charity and unity. In a TV interview, Jonathan Miller stated softly, "We don't want to take over America. We want to bring peace to America, and Islam is the path to that peace." His words resonated nationwide. One night, alone in Mar-a-Lago, Trump stared out his window into a cloudy Florida sky, fearing not Islam, but a truth he couldn't defeat with wealth or power. Then came the storm. Wind roared, lightning struck, Mar-a-Lago went dark. Trump, terrified, staggered to the window as lightning hit a nearby palm tree. The thunder shook the house, yet instead of repenting, he raged, "You think a storm can beat me? I have everything! I will rise again! You will not win! I am America's power!" Lightning struck again, closer. Rain poured, as if cleansing the arrogance from the land. Yet Trump stood, shouting at the heavens, "If you are God, remove Islam from this country. Bring back white glory. I will never let Islam win." His defiance marked the peak of human arrogance, rejecting clear signs. The next morning the storm was gone, but everything had changed. News of Mar-a-Lago's destruction spread, seen by many as a divine warning. Trump versus God trended on social media. Meanwhile, Muslims offered aid to storm victims, opening mosques as shelters, providing food and prayers even to former Islamophobes. A right-wing journalist known for mocking Muslims began questioning his own beliefs after witnessing their compassion. Trump, now isolated, abandoned by donors and scolded by religious leaders, remained stubborn. In a video, he declared, "They're all cowards. I will never submit. Islam will not win in America while I live." But the world had stopped listening. Then came the biggest shock. The Supreme Court ruled that no law could restrict Islamic preaching unless it threatened public order, meaning Islam could now be spread freely. Trump sat stunned, his coffee cold, alone. He had fought a power too great to defeat, tried to defy God, and failed. He was now just an ordinary man, slowly forgotten by history, a symbol of arrogance crushed by truth. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.